It was, like I said, it was definitely a moment of impact, one that, when you think about a car crash, nobody ever knows that it's going to happen. It just happens. And so my husband and I had been married for about 13 years at the time, and he revealed something to me that I was not prepared for. I don't have any desire to go into that because I have a lot of care, respect, and concern for my kid's father. And but I will say this, that in that moment of knowing something I didn't know before, that had been present and hanging over my head without me knowing, was too much for my heart to handle. I wasn't prepared. I had zero coping skills to be able to handle life when it just pops up and happens. And I can directly see, it took me a while to get there. And of course, it was years in my prison experience to get to that point, to where I was able to see, oh, this is where I made my mistakes, and it was not in the response to what happened. It was in my reactions, because it takes thought. It takes accepting advice to make a healthy response to situation. And I wasn't ill-equipped for it. So I was just reacting.
Right. So the secret or whatever happened between you and your husband, it pretty much just sent you on this whole new path that led into the downfall of everything, right?
Right. So the original pathway was, at that time, we were serving within our church. We have 6 beautiful children. We were done having kids. We we were like maybe about 3 years to walking towards the path of home ownership and getting our family out of the neighborhood. And then this happens. So then the direction of my life was based on, number one, me being self-righteous, and that self-righteous indignation and that bitterness, that rage. So the blame games began to happen, and I was playing that game. So I had immediately put in for a transfer to San Diego County, where my dad stayed. And when I spoke to him, he was like, bring the kids, come down here, get out of there, start again, and everything's going to be okay. And when dad tells you that, you're like, okay, no, yes.
Right.
So within 6 months of that, in December 2003, I had my kids packed up and heading towards San Diego County to start life over again. In those 6 months, I had gotten into a fresh new relationship, and thought that I was just living the life, because I was going to go down and start this new life, 2 middle fingers in the air to everything and everyone, and watch me do this, watch me raise up and raise these kids all by myself. I don't even need $1 from y'all. This is really what was going on in my head. And so going down there, I really had a lot of big hopes that everything was going to be everything I needed it to be, in order to show the world that was my world around me and people who knew me, that this wasn't going to destroy me in the least. It was actually going to be the thing that makes me and successful. But, I think it ended up being that way anyway, where I'm standing today, but there was so much involved in the in-between,
Yeah. Oh man. It's crazy that we put so much on ourselves. But what happened? What really just you had all these plans and you were going to do it. What really just threw you off the edge?
Yeah. I always think of like a scripture that always says that, like, we make our plans, but God orders our steps,
Yes.
And so when I think about the path that I thought I was on, it again did not allot for life to happen. I wasn't any more prepared for life to happen than I was when that one moment of impact happened between my husband and I. So I'm still the same person trying to live a different life on a different path, but I haven't changed. So I'm going into this new situation. I go down into San Diego. Now, mind you, I'm joining a division of my company that knows zero about me, doesn't know my struggle, doesn't know where I came from and what I built for myself within the company. They just see me as a brown girl coming into a good old boy environment and making pretty decent money, if not more money than a lot of those guys were making down there. And so I wasn't welcomed. So my employment situation was unstable. I wasn't happy. They gave me the worst of the worst hours, the worst areas to cover. And so that started off with that, because my work life is a big part of my life. Then I'm in a relationship and I'm 100% totally, just in love all of a sudden. But however, my eldest children were very heartbroken by what they, by me doing this. And, and I disregarded everything my sons were trying to express to me about how they felt. I basically told them, when they told me that they didn't care for this, I told them, kids don't tell parents what to do. That's it. You have nothing. You can't tell me nothing. And again, reminding them about what brought us to the situation anyway, which is unfair for me to do to my children, to my boys. My two oldest sons were in a lot of pain, because I only thought about my own feelings. I did not consider the feelings of my kids going through this. I was very self-centered, very self-righteous. And so that's heartbreaking to have to admit, but necessary. And so another moment of impact was actually a moment of impact that changed my life, which was while I was on duty in my work vehicle with my tools and everything in my van. I got rear-ended while at a stoplight. The guy was going like 35 miles an hour. When he hit me, I saw him coming, which is actually the worst thing I could have done, because I braced down for it. That collision caused me to have the last 3 discs in my spine shattered. I was in constant pain. I had like 30% loss of mobility on my left side, and I was devastated. I was out of work, full disability. And I wasn't feeling the support of my company while all this was going on. And I could feel the sense that they were trying to find a way to get rid of me. And so they did. So in addition to being disabled, being in constant pain, I ended up losing my job on a paperwork technicality of them saying they didn't receive my paperwork for my workman's comp. And so they were very quick to send the paperwork to that said that they didn't even fire me in person or on the phone.
Yeah.
They fired me through an express letter that they sent to my home, which is a huge blow to my heart, a huge blow to my ego. And so aside from all that, I ended up coming away from that with the loss of career, but a gain of addiction to pain medication. Wow. And so that began my journey of addiction, pain medications, because the more I asked for, the more they gave. It didn't matter, and when I asked for harder ones, they gave it to me, and when I would say that I ran out, before the time it was supposed to run out, they didn't care. They would re-prescribe me and send refills. So it was very easy for that to happen. And then on top of that, I'm starting to go out, drink at bars. So I'm heavily drinking, heavily partying, taking medications. And so that began that journey of addiction for me,
right?
Which ended up morphing into very quickly an addiction to methamphetamines.
Wow. So you got addicted to these pills, and then eventually got into methamphetamine. So what happened now? You don't have a job. You're feeling like, hey, pretty much this is my low point. Oh, I want to bring it back to what you said about the children. You said that it wasn't right, not communicating with them about what was going on because you didn't feel like they pretty much didn't understand anyways, right?
Yeah.
As a child, I remember my parents used to do the same thing to me. And I just want you to know that you weren't a bad parent. You weren't. I just don't think that none of us were taught to communicate the right way. But what's good is that now, and like you said, you admit it today. And that's what it's truly about, is being able to have that relationship with the children so they understand what we're going through as an adults, and we understand what they're going through as children because they're going through it with us.
Right. And the funny thing about that is that when my parents got divorced, I was 11 years old and I didn't even know they were getting divorced. I didn't know that my mother had moved out of the house. I didn't even know it on the weekend that happened. And I just thought she was somewhere, visiting family. And my dad picks up the phone and he's like, "Hey, I want you to talk to someone." And so I'm like so confused, like, who am I talking to? It's his new girlfriend. And that's how I found out that my parents weren't together, because I'm literally on this phone confused why I'm speaking to this woman that I do not know, and on the phone that's not my mother. So that's how I found out that this happened. So and I've always felt growing up like, this is how I found out about the divorce. And I hated that. And that nobody ever sat me and my little brother down to explain anything to me. And then lo and behold, I perpetuated the same cycle of non-communication to the children I raised to be so intelligent, so well spoken, and I didn't give them that same respect that I felt that I was so deserving of as a child that was very well aware of mom's gone, why am I on the phone, this, that, and the other. And so I've never even put those two and two things together until I've thought about it, but just to even speak about it out loud is just so it's just mind blowing.
That's real. A lot of times we don't know it's there. There's a lot of things that's going on deep within inside of us that we haven't healed, and it comes out in our everyday life, in our teachings, and the way we speak with one another. And so that's why it's very good, like you said, admitting that we did wrong in the past and we're fixing it now. And for me, it's been rough to be able to communicate with everybody else around me. And I always had questions. I was always a curious kid, but I always got shut down. And so, yeah, it always seemed like I wanted the same thing when I got older, but I wasn't able to do it because I just didn't know there was something wrong or there was something there.
I think that's why many of us Samoans, when we do go to prison, we blossom in prison. Because there's nothing holding us back. We're being exposed in an environment. It would be nice for us to be well-traveled and learn these things and be exposed to other cultures and demographics of people. However, we'll take it as we get it. We go to prison and we blossom and we thrive and we meet people from every walk of life. Yeah. And I think that's why we thrive so much in there, because of the fact that in our upbringing, we were so stifled, into thinking one way. I mean, a lot of it is a beautiful way, but a lot that hinders us, that's held us back emotionally, mentally, cognitively, are the things that have caused us to be tripped up in our upbringing and how we operated in the world amongst others and with ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really deep, man. I'm learning things.
Me too. I'm here. I mean, pistons are going off.
Yeah.
And I'm just here because these are the experiences that when you learn something, man, I cherish those things today. Like, I don't take none of that for granted.
Definitely. So, with the everything that you went through, I mean, I can understand. I really do. And it's always the same thing for a lot of us, and I think a lot of people don't realize that we're not just some criminals that woke up one day and this is what we're going to do forever. And we're going to go hurt people and get involved in crime or whatever. It took a lifetime of hurt and miscommunication and, you know, just a lot of things built up within us, and we weren't able to deal with it. That's what it sounds like with you, the same thing.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I was coming to prison a long time before I ever picked up a gun. Believe that. And a lot of people may not understand that outside of the walls, but inside the walls, we understand those things today. That's and what real. That actually means.
Yes, that's real. So you eventually ended up going out there. I read your bio, and you ended up going out there because of these drugs and these addictions, which, man, a lot of people are out there and they're addicted to these things. I hope y'all listening out there, man. But so you got involved with this. Was it something that you got involved with the crime because you had to pay for the addiction, or was it just part of the life now?
Once I knew I was too sick, well, not just myself, my family, my ex-husband, and of course myself, we all had to admit that I was way too sick to take care of my children. Once he came to get the kids from me, that was basically another moment of impact in which I made a decision that I was going to, that when the 6 pieces of my heart drove away from me, they took my heart with them. And so I was totally rock, like a stone inside. I had no more feeling or emotion about any of that. And so I began to make decisions and moves towards a direction, you know, that I had no business doing. I took the last of whatever monies that I had in my 401k, cashed that out. I got I went ahead and accepted a deal from my company, which I was suing for wrongful termination, which I should have taken that all the way and gotten all the money that I was supposed to get. You know, and I didn't do that for my kids and for myself. And instead I cashed out on like a 22 chump change $1,000 payout. And I took the majority of that money and I threw it in the game. And I people that I was buying little, like all of a sudden I'm buying little, you know, $40 sacks to get high. All of a sudden I'm like Big Bank Hank, and I'm coming and I'm buying ounces. And so they're wondering like, dang, who's she robbed? But you know, I robbed my children. I robbed myself. That's who I robbed. But am I going to tell them that? No. So I began to try to build a reputation for myself in San Diego County that I have no clue how it operates. I've only lived in LA and saw how the game was run in LA. And as you know, you go county to county, cultures change, the way things happen changed. Being that close to the border, the influence of the border and cartels and all of that movement of drugs over the border, all that it affects the way things are done on the San Diego side of things. And I was 1000% with it. You know, and I had no problem because I didn't have anything holding back. I was nothing. I was a nothing nobody now, but I was going to try to make myself something, if nothing else in this, you know,
if
so
nothing else is working, right?
And that's my distorted thinking, right? That's my distorted. If I'm going to be a kingpin and I'm going to run this as a business and I'm going to get off drugs and I'm just going to sit up in a fancy house and just make moves. And that's my distorted thinking. I had these big, you know, aspirations to just, you know, have a big house in Rosarito and one in San Diego and just make moves all day, you know. But one thing is I would never do any business with Samoans because I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to crap in my own backyard. And so I only dealt with Mexicans and Southsiders and paisas from across the border. And so in doing this, one thing I wouldn't allow anyone to do is tax me. And so that one thing was burying me and I did not know it. I was like, oh no, no one's taxing me. You kidding me? I'm from LA. You don't do nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? Like that, that kind of mentality was fueling this reputation for me. And I was collecting little by little more and more attention, but negative and enemies along the way. So I'm making too much money and I won't have anybody with me. So I'm riding solo in those streets and I'm vulnerable to every sort of violence out there. And honestly, I wasn't oblivious to that. I really honestly could care less at that time about that.
Yeah. I got a question for you, because I've heard this before, and I'm curious to what you say about this. Like you mentioned environment, you mentioned about getting involved with everything that's around there because it affects everything. Do you think that somewhere deep down inside you as a person that it was always there, that you could pull the trigger and become this drug dealer, and that it was always somewhere deep inside of you? I'm just curious because this is what they tell us these days now, that it's no longer the environment, it's basically something that was within you. The environment just triggered something that was already there. Interesting.
It would be so easy to like to say that whether it's nature versus nurture, but I honestly believe it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
It's like any kind of chemical reaction. You need one thing and another thing, that catalyst to make the chemical reaction happen. And I think that honestly, with all of the kinds of people that I've met in prison, I've made my peace in understanding the nature of the human condition, and in having the right moments or things happen to equal that one bad day. I've been in prison with enough women to know that a lot of these women are there on a bad day, that led up to this moment of impact. And that's why I use that phrase a lot, because I'm serious about this.
That's real.
I understand more today is that everyone has that capability. If you put anybody, that's why they say the person who's the scariest person in the room is actually the one you want to watch out for. The one who's careful, and that's the guy, not the one that puffs his chest out and stomping the yard like that. It's the quiet guy you need to look out for. And that just goes to show that we all have that ability to be pushed in that direction of making a decision, whether it's good or bad for you.
Yes. I love what you said, though, that's that one bad day. I love that because it's so true, and we all have them. We all have them where we just want to go bad, get in the car and start speeding because you're upset, things like that. So
absolutely.
I just love that what you said there, bad day, and a bad day can just change everything, your whole life. One day,
absolutely,
change your whole life. Yeah.
And for other people, it's a series of bad days that led to it. It's not always just like, oh, I woke up one day and I took my kids to soccer practice and then, I mowed down a bunch of people. Sometimes it's that collective collection of bad days, and that's my story. I had these moments and then moments, but in between of those moments of impact, I was making the conscious decisions in the in between that led me in those directions. And again, I'm not going to see that in the moment of making the decisions from moment to moment. I'm only going to be able to see that when I get sat down long enough to look at it.
It's weird. It seems like that we needed this prison thing. At least I feel I needed it to sit down for a while, like you said, because I wasn't thinking, that I wasn't no more. I was just reacting to everything. And that's a bad position to be in. So you ended up going out and catching some robbery cases, you said?
So I ended up getting with a guy, because in my life out there in the streets, again, collecting enemies, not realizing what's happening around me, and frankly not even really caring at that point. And I was attacked by a couple of people that busted my door down in a hotel, and they were looking to take me out. They were trying to take me out. They beat me. I have scars that will always remind me of the fact that I could have lost my life that day. lucky for me, I was screaming so loud. It was so early in the morning when this happened that my voice was echoing, and the attendant in the hotel heard it and was screaming up saying he had called the police. Had he not done that, they would have surely finished the job because they were going that way, you know. And so from that point on, they took all my money because I carried everything on me, all the dope, all the money, all the everything, and I was left with nothing. So everything that I was building up over those couple of years ended in that one moment for me. So that was another moment in which I had to make a decision. So I ended up, you know, you let the devil set you up for anything, he gonna be right there where he needs to be. And so I ended up like going back to dime bag selling and 20 bag selling, you know, got put on, and I started selling dope in behind an adult store, because cops don't care. All kind of creeps go around there, and they're not going to care if the people I'm selling dope to you know, are coming to see me. They're just thinking they're being creepy. So I was going to use that time to like amass new wealth and get back in. And I met my co-defendant in there and from the time I met him and the 9 months following, it was a chaotic relationship. I didn't realize he had just got out of prison like 3 days before I met him. Oh, you know, and for serving time for our robberies. He was a validated gang member in the pen. So this is what I'm, you know, accepting into my life in that moment, because now I feel like I made mistakes. I need protection in the streets. So I wasn't going to let that happen. He was just that cuckoo and, you know, but protective of me. And so I just felt like that was the right decision for me. But however, he was like stopping me at every point because he didn't respect my hustle. He was all about the smash and grab, you know, gun in your face, armed robber. And I was not about that. Like, as a matter of fact, I would buy stolen stuff from you in the streets if I found out you stole it. But if I find out you took that stuff from like a home invasion, I would be so like, oh no, I don't take this. Yeah. You know, because I, you know, in my twisted thinking, you know, this sounds about right for me, you know, because I have morals. So but this guy went against everything that I believed in the streets, my code in the streets. But I was accepting of it because my strength in the streets was nothing compared to what he had over me. You know, he just caught me at a time where I was at my lowest. Right. And he ended up becoming my everything, which is my mistake. Is and putting all my eggs in his basket meant I was accepting everything he was about and relinquishing everything I was about, which was really nothing. But, you know, in my mind, it was everything. And so he was very abusive. I've never been in an abusive relationship ever. So he beat me up really bad one day, and I went in hiding from him, trying to get away from him. But people had told him where I was at. He found me, and he pulled me into the car, put a gun to my head, and proceeded to let me know I wasn't going to be leaving him, and that this is what we about to do. I remember, this is what we about to do. And so that night I committed my first armed robbery.